Besides the three types of being, Jaspers makes a distinction between various modes of being. The first mode of being, which might be familiar to you, is Dasein. For Jaspers, Dasein is something empirical, meaning it has temporal dimension. It is rooted in the world. As Dasein, you interact with the world. Dasein is your everyday mode of being. It's your concrete mode of being. You make sense of the world as Dasein. Since it's a practical mode of being, it's involved in the world of experience. It experiences things. So the practical aspects of everyday life is related to Dasein. The crucial point to bear in mind is Dasein's finite aspect. As we mentioned, Dasein is related to the temporal dimension. The temporal reality implies the limitations of Dasein. Basically, because of his empirical existence, Dasein has limitations. As human beings, being can be manifested to us through empirical existence. By being practically involved in the world, we get to know being. We are the only species who are able to do that. For no other species, being is an issue, and no other species is able to think about being by being practically involved in the world. So we are a type of species for whom worldly activities can manifest being. If you're familiar with Heidegger, this might remind you of Heidegger when he talks about equipment. For Jaspers, I am first of all an empirical existent. The limitations we mentioned have a lot to do with how limited we are in our interactions with the world. And since we are empirical beings, these limitations arise from our empirical existence. Meaning, because we have a certain type of body, our senses are limited when interacting with the natural world. And I don't mean that we are limited in the sense that we cannot sense transcendental beings like angels or gods. This is not about spirituality. Think about it this way. If you want to interact with tiny things, like bacteria, you need a microscope. Your body simply does not allow you to see things the size of bacteria. You can think of another example. If you want to get from point A to point B, you cannot get there instantly. Your body does not allow it. Another crucial point about Dasein is that it is not an object to be examined in isolation. Dasein is a being among other beings in the world. Here, as we can see, Jaspers emphasizes the importance of our social existence. We need to be in society and we need to communicate with others. Jaspers calls interaction and philosophical communication with others Liebender Kampf, meaning a loving struggle. We need to find a balance between having an authentic self and being in society. For existentialists like Heidegger and Jaspers, it's important to find a balance between having an authentic self and being in society among others. We need to be in society and interact with others in a way that we would not lose ourselves to others. And perhaps most importantly, for Jaspers, the goal of philosophy is philosophizing in communication with others, not in isolation. Although you might see certain similarities between Heidegger's concept of Dasein and how Jaspers talks about Dasein, there are differences. The most crucial difference is that for Jaspers, Dasein has a transcendent aspect that cannot be found in Heidegger's concept of Dasein. For Jaspers, the empirical world that we can interact with is not reality as a whole. There is more than what appears to us and what we perceive as reality. The next mode of being is called consciousness as such or consciousness in general. Consciousness as such, like Dasein, deals with the empirical world. Specifically, as consciousness as such, we are able to interact with the world in a scientific way. We are able to gain knowledge, we are able to share that knowledge, and we are able to communicate that knowledge to others. So anyone who has the capacity to deal with knowledge can receive that knowledge as consciousness as such. So as consciousness as such, we are able to deal with the world scientifically. We can come up with mathematical ideas and communicate them to others. We can deal with Newtonian physics. We can teach science to students, and so on. Another mode of being which is empirical is spirit. Now we've talked about Dasein and consciousness as such. Dasein is concrete, it's very concrete, it's your everyday mode of being. But on the other side, we have consciousness as such, which is universal. And it's exactly because of its universal nature that we are able to share universal ideas. Now, these two modes of being need to interact somehow in a meaningful and coherent way. The concreteness of Dasein and the universality of consciousness as such come together in spirit. Spirit is the drive for wholeness, for coherency. It is as spirit that we experience the world in a coherent way, and we achieve that because we are able to bring together the universality of consciousness as such and the concreteness of Dasein. Dasein, consciousness as such, and spirit are not separate things. They come together and interact with each other, in the sense that they are empirical and they are rooted in the world. But as we've already mentioned, for Jaspers, transcendence is something very crucial. Therefore, we need another mode of being to deal with transcendence. That mode of being is existence. Now, it's hard to describe what existence exactly is. The difficulty arises because existence is non-empirical and it does not have an objective dimension. So in a way, it's something unintelligible. For one thing, our language is limited, so we cannot use it in a way to explain what existence is. But most importantly, there is no object to refer to. So how are you going to talk about something that you cannot refer to? Despite its unintelligibility, existence is at the heart of Jaspers' philosophy. Existence is a unique existential possibility which can be actualized in every individual. Its importance can be seen in the actual moment of choice and decision. If you remember, previously we said for Jaspers, transcendence is dependent on the world. There is no transcendence without the world. In much the same way, existence is dependent on Dasein. There is no existence without Dasein.